It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I take my first pass at the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So as I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But today, we're continuing through Sonic Week. And here he is, the namesake of the game, Sonic the Hedgehog. A 4-mana Jeskai 2/4 Hedgehog Warrior with Haste. His ability Gotta Go Fast says whenever Sonic the Hedgehog attacks, we're going to put a counter on each creature we control with Flash or Haste. And whenever a creature we control with Flash or Haste is dealt damage, we get to make a tap treasure. There's a lot of ways we can look at Sonic as a whole, but I think really want to just try to take advantage of as much of his abilities as we can. The front half of it's going to be pretty easy. There's a lot of ways to either have every card and creature in the deck have Flash or Haste. We could make hasty tokens and things like that. We could pay off the fact that counters are there. That's all going to be pretty easy to do. I chose to focus on that a little bit more than I did the bottom half. Although I think we're going to trigger that a lot with these small creatures with counters, them attacking. If they get blocked, right, they're going to trigger that and give us some tap treasures. I'm not focused on it as much, but I think over the course of a game, we're going to net some good mana as we kind of get it along the way. I want to say a quick thank you to the channel member. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing all of our videos just a little bit early for $1 a month, consider checking that out down below. Well, all right. I try my best to give every creature in the deck either Flash or Haste, just so that every creature in our deck should be able to trigger right Sonic and get that counter. Aboleth Spawn has the ability whenever a creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of an opponent's creature to trigger. We can copy that ability and get new targets copied. This is going to happen all that often, but it is a very interesting ability. And I think more than anything will surprise your opponents, especially at flash speed. Amy Rose, of course, in the secret lair as well. Whenever she attacks, we can put an equipment we control on her, and then another creature gets +X+O where X is her power. Just a great ability. I think it's just going to help us out over the course of combats, just hit more and more damage. Archivist of Ogma, whenever an opponent searches their library, we gain a life and draw a card. This is a nice ability just to give us some advantage, and being at flash speeds, meaning we can do it in response to our opponents doing something. Aurelia giving that first combat. Additional combat the first time it attacks each turn. Very useful, again, to get multiple counters from Sonic and just get more damage across to our opponents. Brazen Bower on its adventure side lets us bounce a non-land permanent to an opponent's hand. And then on the main side, it's just a flash flying 3/1 that can't block only creatures with flying. I think Borrower's mainly in here as its adventure side. But it's nice to have a flash body that can get those counters and become bigger. Deep Gnome Terramancer says whenever more lands enter the battlefield under opponent's control without being played, we can search our library for planes and put on the battlefield tap. So if our opponents use ramp and things like that, we're going to be able to go get planes once per turn. A very interesting ability, and the fact that it's at flash speed, again, is very useful. Fairy Mastermind, whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, we draw a card, so a good way to get us some extra card draw, and it's in the air. Goldspan has Haste, makes treasures, and allows all of our treasures sack for 2 mana. Of course, very helpful, right, with Sonic's bottom ability, which is already making us treasures. The new Knuckles, Double Strike, Trample, Haste. Whenever one of our creatures hit a player, we get to make a treasure. So this is great alongside what this other stuff's trying to do. And then has a win con if we can make it to enough treasures. Laylee, another haster. Whenever it attacks, we exile the top card of our library. We can play it this turn. Whenever one or more cards are put into exile from our library or our graveyard, we get to put a counter on Laylee. The whole point is Laylee is going to grow, get us some card advantage by taking something off the top, and maybe just become a big threat on its own. Legion Loyalist is a really fun ability. Whenever at least 2 other creatures attack, all of our creatures get first strike and trample and can't be blocked by tokens. It's a very interesting ability, and I'm hoping as you spread the table on how many random decks you're going to play against, I think this is one of those cards that can really make a difference in stopping your opponents from being able to block you. Malcolm from Lost Caverns can flash in. Whenever it hits a player, you get to put a counter on it, draw a card, then discard. And if there's 4 more counters on it, we could cast the discarded card without paying its mana cost. Again, the point is, comes in as a flash flyer, going to grow, going to help us churn through our deck a little bit. And then when we get to that 4th counter, now you're just going to start playing, hopefully, some just big things for free. Shivan Devastator, a big flying hasty dragon that comes in with a bunch of counters on it. Hopefully, going to get some more over the course of turns with Sonic. Or a Brass is just going to give all of our creatures haste. So whether they have haste print on it or not, they're going to have it, meaning that no matter what, Sonic's going to grow them. And our Brass slows our opponents down by having their creatures come in tap. And then we have a couple spells that make hasty tokens. So a Ganjo Uprising makes a bunch of 2/2s that have Menace and Haste. It does give our opponent X-1 of them, but ours have Menace and Haste and are going to grow with Sonic, meaning they're going to be very hard to deal with, hopefully. Fourth Orlingus makes a bunch of 2/2s with Trample and Haste. Temple with Vengeance makes a bunch of 1/1s with Haste. And then we have things like the Fire Crystal, which gives all of our creatures haste. Frontcliff Siege, we can give all our creatures trample and haste, and then Rising of the Day, giving all of our creatures haste. So we have ways to just flat give haste to our entire board, so that way everything's always getting triggered by Sonic. We don't have to worry about if it's printed on the card, or if we, for some reason, were to take our opponent's things or something like that. We're always making sure that haste is around and able to be used for us. Counters are pretty easy to pay off. We have 2 of the 3 main counter colors in white and blue, so we're going to pretty much have some great stuff. We have things like Battle Priest and Falconer that give every creature with a counter on it a different ability. Battle Priest gives lightning, Falconer gives flying. I think these are just things across the board that are going to lead to us dealing more damage in combat, especially with the lifelink. Help us keep alive a little bit better. Danny Pink says every creature we control has, whenever one of our counters are put out for the first time, draw a card. This is just going to draw us a ton of cards, hopefully, refilling our hand, getting us the pieces we need, and allowing us to kind of get more things we need at the right time to have them. Airless Secret Streams, creature we control with counters on them can't be blocked. Now it's just going to make them completely unblockable, which I feel like is pretty cool. And my hope is that you can stick this alive long enough to deal big damage. Thundering Raiju says whenever it attacks, you put a counter on target creature you control, then it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is a number of modified creatures you control. So remember, counters are modifications, so hopefully the wider we go, this just starts dealing out more damage. I know Kilo isn't out yet, but I wanted to show you an example of a card that could be really useful for you in a deck like this. Whenever it's tap proliferate, it's not out. Like I said, it's not out yet. It's going to come out with Edge of Eternities, but I think it's one of those cards that at the time that I'm brewing it, I've seen it, and I think it'd be really useful for the deck because as soon as it attacks, it's gonna work with Sonic. So have Sonic go off first, putting the counters and everything, and then have Kilo go off second, proliferating, adding more counters. Right, so just beautiful, love it, and that's the kind of card you want to see in a deck like this. Damning Verdict and Wave Goodbye are all kind of board wipes for us, both of them in different ways. Damning Verdict just destroys all creatures that don't have counters on them. Again, hopefully that shouldn't be many of our creatures because of Sonic. And then Wave Goodbye bounces all creatures back to their opponent's hands that don't have counters on them. Just very useful abilities, and when you could see them at the right time, they're great. Shout out to the Final Fantasy Commander X for finally reprinting Damning Verdict and making it actually a good real-life cost. It used to be almost $15, and it was brutal. Uncivil Unrest can help us hand out some damage. If a creature we control the counter on it would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. So that's pretty cool, right? Allowing them to hit even harder. And then all non-token creatures we control have Riot. So how Riot works is a non-token creature is going to come in. It has a choice. It can either take a counter or get haste. So since most of our things are going to have haste we're not worried about, I think we're almost always going to take the counter. That way they're going to start dealing more damage. Well, all right. I think there's a couple of interesting ways we can look to end the game. We can go the multi-combat route. This is all surrounding an enchantment called Aggravated Assault. This is a 3-mana red enchantment that for 5 mana just gives you another combat. My thought here is our creatures are just going to keep growing and growing, right, as Sonic puts counters on them. The question is, how do we pay for the 5 mana for Aggravated Assault? Remember, we can't rely on Sonic's bottom ability because he makes tap treasures, and you have to tap treasures in order to use them to pay to get the mana, right? So we can use something like the Reaver Cleaver, which got that new secret lair reprint as Knuckles Gloves. A creature gets +1/+1 in trample, and whenever it hits a player in combat, you make that many treasures. Again, if we can hit for 5 consistently, we're constantly using Aggravated Assault to take additional combats over and over again. And like I said, Sonic's growing our board, so hopefully it's only going to take a few combats to really snowball and end the game. The other option we have is Sword of Feast and Famine. Gives the creature +2/+2 in pro black and green, so it could help us potentially get some free hits on somebody depending on what creatures they have. But it says whenever the creature hits a player in combat, that player pitches a card and we untap all lands we control. So as long as we have enough mana in our lands to pay for Aggravated Assault, this again will get us to the point that we can take as many combats as we want to, using Sonic to grow our board and just eventually snowball and take over the game. I'm trying to add some other fun combos because I think especially as EDH goes on, it seems like combos are always becoming more prevalent. If you don't want to spin Sonic up to a higher power level, you can just go ahead and take this combo out if you want to. But I think it's a combo that is going to be very useful. And that's with a card called Dualcaster Mage. This is a flash human wizard. This is when it comes in, we're going to copy an instant or sorcery spell, and we can choose new targets for the copy. What Dualcaster Mage needs in order for this combo to work is a copy spell that makes a copy of a creature and gives it haste, and then, until end of turn. There's a couple options to this. We have Heat Shimmer, you have Twin Flame, you have a couple other red spells as well. Basically, what they say is create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it has haste, and you get rid of it at the end step. How this is going to work is you're going to use the Heat Shimmer or the Twin Flame on another creature. You need another legal target to start this chain. You're going to respond with Dualcaster Mage. It's going to enter copying either of those, or whatever ones you choose, copying Dualcaster Mage, targeting Dualcaster Mage. Then the copy of Dualcaster Mage is going to come in. It's going to see that original Heat Shimmer or Twin Flame still on the stack, copy it again, copy itself, and then you're just going to make as many copies of Dualcaster Mage as you want to. Most of the time, it's to the point that you're going to end the game in combat. Personally, I think that's pretty easy that something like this could be considered a bracket 4 combo. That's up to you on how you want to decide it. I could make an argument for 3. I could make an argument for 4 because I'm finding no way to me. I'm not finding any way to find this combo. I would just draw into it. Whereas I feel like bracket 4 decks are going to go find this combo, but neither here nor there. The point is, this is a 2-card combo that can get you enough Dualcaster Mages to end the game. It's up to you on whether or not you want to play this. If you don't want to play this, you can take all 3 of them out, find some other creatures, and you're A-okay. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my first take at Sonic. And I think going into testing, there's a couple answers that I have for myself. One, am I drawing enough cards? We could look into effects like Biden of Thassa to draw cards when our creatures hit for that. I think we've got enough other good ways to draw cards, but sometimes you think that, and it isn't actually the case, and you know you need to add more. More ways to blanket give haste, like Gimli's Reckless Might just gives all of our creatures haste, and we can have a creature fight each turn, which is very interesting and can help with some removal. Or we can look at some more spells that make hasty tokens. Heroic Intervention makes a couple soldiers and then gives all of our creatures +1/+1 in haste until end turn, which I think is a relevant ability, especially since it buffs our entire board. We could look into more spells like this that just gain us value over the course of the time, right? The soldiers only get haste until end of turn, but I mean, they get the counter, and then maybe we can build on more, haste sources to make sure they always have haste for Sonic's ability. But let's do what we love to do the most on the channel and get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtests on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not just to show off all our best plays, but it's to get in some gameplay scenarios and kind of understand how we're going to set up our game plan and what we're looking for. Here, this first one, we're looking at a 4-lander with Generous Gift. There's that new print from the Secret Lair, a Ganjo Uprising, and then the Fire Crystal. The Fire Crystal going to give haste to all our creatures. So I don't mind this one. I've got 2 planes. I've got the Landscape, which can go get me either red or blue, and I have the Exotic Orchard. So if somebody has red or blue, the Landscape's just going to get me the other one. And then I have enough colors for Sonic. Now, if my opponents have like red, there's always the option if we draw a blue source to go the Landscape for red to go get the Fire Crystal, but we'll see, right, what we can accomplish there. Well, there's the second red source in Talisman of Conviction, so that could potentially change our mind in how we want to do this. We also see a Rising of the Day, go another way to give each other haste. So now we've got double red sources, so we could go for the Fire Crystal. So there's another red source there. So if at the moment I can't cast, unless somebody has blue, I cannot cast Sonic this turn, right? Because this can go get me an island, but I have to sack it and it comes in tapped. So if nobody has that, my options either do that or like play a mountain and go into the Fire Crystal to make Sonic only 3 mana. I guess conversely, I could crack this and play the Rising of the Day, right? Just to then make sure that everybody has haste always, so we're not worried about it. Then come into the next turn. Now we've got 5 mana. Sonic is 4. We can just get Sonic in and get it attacking. It doesn't put it on other creatures, it just puts it on each creature. So Sonic will get the counter, which is nice, and then he gets the buff from Rising of the Day, so he'd be a 4/4 checking that turn. Now coming into this turn for 6 mana. So remember, everything's coming in with haste, so everything's going to be able to attack. I could do the Ogma if I Ganjo for 4. Everybody else would get 3, but all of mine will end up being 3/3s with 4/4s with 3/3s with Menace and Haste. That's kind of an awkward situation there. Do we go for like the Fire Crystal? Or like Fire Crystal plus the Ogma, my thought. If we want to do that. It does give us the option to make a copy of a creature for 6 mana if we want to, but I don't mind the idea of the Uprising. The only downside of the Uprising is we're giving our opponents them too, so I'd kind of rather wait until we really take advantage of the most mana we can. Note that Sonic doesn't care about the fact that they're attacking. It can just get the counter, have Sonic attack again. All right, so there's Fire Magic, an example of one of the cards that can deal damage to each creature, meaning deal damage to our creatures and get us a bunch of treasures. So if I were to go 4 into the Iganjo, I'm trying to think. So the Iganjo makes 2/2s, but it's 2 mana to deal 2 damage to each creature. We could maybe like go into the Iganjo this turn, maybe take some attacks, and then like Fire Magic next turn to destroy all those 2/2s. So my thought here is the Fire Crystal is going to have this cost 1 less, so automatically 1 should be what, 5? All of our opponents would get 4. Now we don't have to attack with these samurais, right? But they do have menace, meaning they're going to be a little bit harder to block, and they're going to be 3/3s, right? Because Sonic's going to attack and give everybody a counter. My gut tells me we need to get attacking. Like, there's no point in waiting around. Maybe our opponents lose out on some stuff there. We could have left up a mana for something like Fire Magic if we wanted to, but I don't think it would have mattered. I think this is probably still my attack. We might lose a Samurai or two. Everybody got 4, right? So they may double block, 1 or 2 of them, which means we probably lose 1 or 2 of them, but I think it's worth it to get the damage through. Because now my thought is on this turn, I could Fire Magic for 3. They deal 2 damage to kill all of those Samurai if I want to. It leaves me enough mana to use like Brazen Bower or the Generous Gift, and this is actually going to net me a couple treasures, right? Because of the fact that my creatures are taking damage, right? So this is going to net me some treasures for next turn. Take the attack, get the counters, right? And then they still have 2 damage in them, so they're 2/2s instead of 4/4s. But hopefully we cleared the way, and we don't even have to attack with them, right? Because only Sonic has to attack. We had the removal on somebody else's turn in case we needed it. But now we've got way more mana than we know what to do with. It would be a great time to start drawing some cards. Maybe we ended up picking up some cards with the Ogma. I thought as Apprentice plus Brazen Borrower, we could even bounce something and then play the Borrower, right? With how much mana we have, right? And then the Apprentice makes a Thopter, right? Sonic attacks, everybody gets a counter, and I think we're just in good shape. We're going to continue attacking. We can hold up the removal here because of the Generous Gift. I mean, maybe there's a world where before we played the Aganjo, somebody blocked Sonic, giving us a few more treasures, and maybe we made more Samurai. You never quite know how the game's going to wear out, but I think at this point we're in good shape, and we're just going to keep netting mana if people block us, right? I think we'll be A-okay. Let's get into playtest number 2 here. Keeping a 4-lander with Deep Gnome Terramancer. So that's the one where if somebody gets a land, we get to get a land Storm, and then Pyrohemia. For red mana, we can deal damage to each creature and each player. So a good way to just ping our entire board and make us treasures is pretty cool. Turn 1, I don't think our option really matters. Turn 2, I'll put the mountain down, and I can hold up Deep Gnome Terramancer. Right, if somebody goes to ramp, we use it and go get a plains. Let's just say for the purposes of this that somebody did do it. somebody did go to ramp, because that's going to be very common in a commander game, right? If somebody's playing green, they're going to be ramping. Let's say that we get it. Remember, it's a plains card. It doesn't say basic plains. We can go get something like the Rogren Triumph. My thought here is this is just going to allow us to get into Sonic faster, and actually even faster because it gave us the soaring. Which again, just go for Sonic. They both can attack if we want them to. But otherwise, I just think we're in good shape. If anybody continues to try to ramp, we just get more lands. But otherwise, we're just going to keep playing our game. 7 mana here. Lannery plus the Pyrohemia is my thought. Tack out, get the counters, get the treasure from Lannery Storm. Use the treasure into the Pyrohemia to deal damage to get 3 tap treasures, right? And then ship it, right? Keep going. Could have done it in combat if we wanted to, I guess, to grow Lannery as well. I guess get the Aboleth in and just keep going. We can Pyrohemia multiple times. Like if opponent has a bunch of 2/2s, like we could Pyrohemia multiple times to deal damage. Otherwise, I think we just, attack and then, put a keep putting a mana into Pyrohemia to get, now it would be 4 treasures. Now we're just netting the mana. The question is, we have nothing to use it for. Maybe this is one of those games where, we see that the Biden would have been necessary to draw some more cards. We were playing some other ways to draw cards, but maybe this is an example of why we need to draw the cards, because now we have these creatures that are potentially hitting in and, just no way to take advantage of it. Let's do one more playtest. I think we kind of got there. It's just going to come down to what we draw extra at that point, right? 4-lander here with that Legion Loyalist, Temp with Vengeance, make a bunch of 1/1 elementals with Haste and Fairy Mastermind. I don't mind this one. I mean, there are ways this hand can get better, right? Zero Beach turn 1. I mean, my thought was just put the Loyalist turn 1, but I actually don't mind just like flashing in the Mastermind here because the Loyalist has Haste, right? Here, get the Loyalist in and hold up Counterspell just in case somebody does anything snazzy. And then right here in turn 4, we Sonic. We can attack with 3 creatures, so they'll all get, right, with Loyalist's ability, they're all going to get First Strike and Trample, and then, tokens can't block. But again, now we're getting the counters on here. We're getting the party going. Now, Fairy Mastermind may end up netting us a couple cards here for our opponent's drawing. I can't really simulate that. Here, I mean, Herald doesn't seem like a terrible idea to make them unblockable, but I think I kind of like the idea of Danny Pink a little bit more, just to get the counters on all of them. I guess we could start with the Pyrohemia and get 3 treasures, just deal 1 damage to everything, or we could wait and maybe there's a better way to, like, I almost would rather Temp with Vengeance than if somebody takes the elementals, then we do the fire magic to kill them. But otherwise, it couldn't be a bad place to just start with a couple treasures here. Yeah, they do come in tap, so we can't use them till next turn. But my thought is that plus Danny. Sonic is going to attack, putting 3 counters on. That's 3 cards drawn. Right, Danny won't draw because he doesn't have haste, but it doesn't matter because his ability really got to be used. We didn't crack the landscape. We ended up using it for Danny. But then, right, as long as no one's really touched the board and we're back to where we want to be, Winged Hive Tyrant gives all our creatures with counters on them flying in haste, so it gets them in the air. But, I mean, we kind of have Trample and First Strike, which is almost equally as good. My thought is just ram a bunch of mana into the Tempt. I'm kind of thinking Windcrag with the treasures, and then just go 5 into the Temp with Vengeance, making us 5 elementals. Now, if anybody's dumb enough to make the elementals, we get that many, but probably don't honestly see it happening. And then we're just going to unfortunately draw a ton. We're going to draw a ton of cards here because we're going to draw 9, right, the first time this goes off. And it's going to go off a second time, but remember, Danny only has them go off the first time. So it's not like we're going to draw 9 twice. We'll only draw 9 once. But the point is, we still get the First Strike and the Trample because of Loyalists. They still can't be blocked by tokens. And we draw a ton of cards, which is just going to end up having us pitch. But I don't think we really care because, again, we're hopefully just presenting a ton of damage here. We go to end step and just, pitch the things we don't want. There's an Achroma's Will, which could just as well end the game. Same thing with Wave Goodbye. We got some great pieces here that are probably just going to end the game if we untap, and the board's exactly the same it is. As Wave Goodbye could bounce on our opponent's creatures. Achroma's Will most of the time is just lethal, especially when you can get everything on it. It's just a great hand, and I think we're in just great shape. But I'd love to know, what do you think of Sonic down in the comment section below. I think it's an interesting deck. Pairing Flash and Haste together makes a ton of sense. You have so many great choices. I think there's so many honest choices you could make as far as cards go. If you don't like that Kilo's not in there yet, just place another card. But again, by the time you see this video, we're basically at Edge of Eternities anyway. And I wanted to just sneak a couple little sneak peeks of there of some cards we've seen already. But thank you so much for watching the video, and I will catch you on the next one.